Great question to start at. I think at the end of the day, productive. I mean, we feel like we came away with some targets, and so like any draft, there's ebbs and flows. Board's got to come to you. You know, there's some players that got picked before you that you would have liked to have, but for the most part, and I say this, when you're drafting, when you got 7+ picks, day 3, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it, from starting with area scout all the way to Reggie Scott medical. We draft some non-combines. Non-combine means, okay, how do we get physicals on non-combine guys, right? There's a lot of people where different people in our building went out, vetted the players, interviewed them. So when we did onboard them, they'd have someone in our building to trust, and then it eventually going through All-Star game, combine, coming back, working with the coaching staff, right, to get the buy-in, to get the alignment, to get, which players, right, have specific skills to help us. So it's fascinating when you look at that board, and a lot of things are happening fast. A lot of players are leaving it, but you really appreciate that. Even though I don't even know, we may have 8. How many we get? 8.
8. Yeah.
8 picks plus Troy Hill, the bonus, right? But each one of those picks, there's a lot of man hours, right, from a lot of different people that aren't just in coaching and scouting, that goes into their case. So we're jacked to have them.
4 DBs, if you count, like you mentioned, trading for Troy. Was that a strategic target, or is that just kind of the way the board fell?
DB was definitely something we were going to strategically target, and there was a moment where there players that we liked were still on the board, and we call it double down, triple down. I often say, hey, there's a time where in some draft classes where it's very similar to a mutual fund, where you're going to bring in a lot of different players with different skill sets, genres, and you put them in the room and it just becomes a very competitive and obviously deeper room.
Sean, can you kind of take us through the thinking of reacquiring Troy Hill and how that came together?
Yeah, he's a guy that played really good football for us, especially in the first year that we were running a version of this system when we first got Coach Staley here, and then obviously Raheem has put his own spin on it. But I think just the overall production, the position flex, Gary, the ability to be able to play that nickel, that star position, be able to play outside. He's a guy we're very familiar with, and as they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And so you appreciate Troy when you look back on how well he played throughout the course of his career since I got here. But I just think the overall instincts, I think the toughness that's required to be able to play inside with the way that this game has evolved, where you are a part of the run fit, but you've also got great concept trigger, awareness, ball skills. One of the things I remember the most about Troy with his last year with us was just the ball production, but scoring. I mean, he has 3 touchdowns for us. He's able to do a lot of just different things where, you talk about what a big play that was at the end of the half against Arizona when we had to have it in that game where, we get in if we win that game. And even though I know Green Bay ended up beating Chicago, that it helped us out, so it wouldn't have mattered. But, Troy, just the versatility and being able to get him back, he was excited. And I know the players are excited to get him back here with us as well.
There are a couple of things about both of the sort of trade navigations that you guys did with this, with Troy being one of them, and then also trading up for running back.
Yep.
And I'm kind of wondering if you guys can take us through some of the process behind that. Troy leaves and you guys get a comp pick that you use to then maneuver elsewhere in the draft and get him back the same day. And then what goes into trading up for the running back and some of the connections there.
On the Troy, which is interesting in that we started discussing Troy a little bit earlier with Andrew Berry with the Browns, and they were working through things, and then they drafted a corner early in this draft, and at that point made Troy probably more tradable for them. So Andrew and I were talking about it, and we were discussing ways to get it done, and at the end of the day, going to the comps, because we probably have 7 picks next year and expect to get 4 comps. Now, we can't trade comps yet. That's just an expectation. It'll probably happen, but it does allow you to go, okay, we had 11 picks, and the Browns today had a lot of picks on second day, so we said, you know what, it's probably best that we do something better for both of us to do something in the future. So I think all the calculus and comps, and I think there's many times in the draft where you sit and go, okay, should we go get a player? And it was interesting last night, even with Logan Russ, Big Wit, who made an appearance, asked the question, okay, if we think this player has a chance to be a starting right guard, what would it take to go get him? And usually it's a 6th or 7th rounder. And Witt asked the question, he said, wouldn't we do that? And I said, you know what, that's pretty sound reasoning, Witt. And at that point we did make some calls to see if we can move up for Logan, but those teams wanted to stay pat, and it worked out for us. So I think that's the same thing with Kyren, and we'd also done a little research. Okay, there were some teams that maybe had brought him in on visits, things that hadn't picked a running back yet that might pick him, and you try to beat those teams to the punch.
And then, Sean, you have mentioned that you've gone through the process, or going through the process of retooling your run game a little bit here this offseason. So where does Kyren fit in that regard?
Well, he's an easy eval because, you look at the system with Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator, a lot of concept carryover for some of the things that we'll do. I think he's a really complete back, Jordan. One of the things that you love the most about him is you see versatility on all 3 downs. He's great in protection. He is fearless, where he'll stick his face on people. He can stay connected on those things. Got a great feel in the screen game. I think he's an excellent offset gun runner. But you also see great contact balance, ability to produce in both phases, both the run and the pass. And so he's just an elite competitor. I'm sure you guys saw the emotions that he had when he got the call, but everybody that's been around him can't speak highly enough about the human being and the way that he plays the game. It sure makes sense. What you hear about his personality and the mental and the physical toughness that he possesses, he seems like he's kind of one of our kind of guys, and that's what we said from the very beginning. And that was where, really, when you look at it, we identified him. There were some other players at that position that we had liked for, but he was a guy that we felt strong enough, hey, this guy's right there. There was kind of a run on backs right around that time, and you don't want to miss out on him. And so we felt like that was a good decision for us, and excited to get to work with him.
In the secondary, they said he's elusive.
Yeah.
What did you see? I guess you rated really high in avoiding that.
Yeah, he's got the great contact balance. I think he's got a seamless ability to be able to work edges. You could see there was a lot of runs where he gets strung out in the backfield and he's able to circle the defense, and be able to create big plays. I think he's one of those guys that can get to full speed very quickly. He's got that immediate acceleration, but I think it's a combination of all the factors that enable you to be able to work edges on people, whether it's the contact balance, the slash running, and then just the overall elusiveness and quickness, that helps you be a productive runner. And I think a lot of those things will translate to this league.
With the secondary getting so deep, so fast today, what differentiates each of those guys? Obviously, talking about the draft process.
Obviously, Sean went into Troy. I think, and Sean, you can go. Jacoby
Sure.
Durant's one of those players. Again, South Carolina State, so that's a smaller level of football. But boy, did he touch the football. I mean, he touched the football at a really high rate. And it's interesting. I remember sitting and watching him play against Clemson, and you just felt the competitive football player. It's South Carolina State, Clemson. I mean, he's blowing up bubble screens and he's playing the ball, down the field deep. So that was just one of those games where you go, okay, he stepped it up. You see the close touch the football. During DK,
Kendrick.
I guess we can go Quentin Lake's one of those guys that just knows how to play football. Obviously, probably there's some DNA in that, but he's one of those guys that just, from the safety standpoint, processes football, knows the geometry of the game, just plays it really well. Darian Kendrick going from Clemson to Georgia. And another one of those guys that's versatile inside out, has a safety brain for football players. So, again, going to be a very heady football player. And again, with some of our vision concepts, that helps. And then Rush Yeast at the end, and Sean and I are laughing, remembering his dad, Craig Yeast, going back to Kentucky and Tim Couch and Hal Mummy. But he was a kid that's unbelievable in that had a pretty devastating injury at Louisville, ends up transferring to Kansas State, and boy, it's just one of those. If you watch Kansas State, you know what? They're fun to watch on defense because they know how to play football, and this guy's very versatile. Safety ended up being a star for them, and a very heady, versatile player. And with Jacoby and with Mr. Yeast, it was really competitive on teams throughout their career too. So.
How many of these players do you expect to make immediate contributions?
That's to be determined. This is the fortunate thing, right? We got a really competitive roster with a lot of veterans with experience. So at the end of the day, I would say time will tell. I know Sean and his group will get them in. We'll begin developing them, and then at that point in time, we'll see how quickly they can pick it up, how competitive they'll be. But I got a gut feeling there's a lot of these 8 guys that are going to be playing football for us on Sunday at some point next year.
I
touched on it earlier, but all four of those defensive.
You know what? This is like a Philly news conference all of a sudden. I love it.
For one question.
No, I'm just kidding.
You mentioned earlier, but it seems like a theme on all four of those defensive backs is that they have versatility. Just because Lake can guard guys in the slot. Yeast was a cornerback for 3 years.
Right.
Is that a common theme of something that you look for? Or is it just sort of a reflection of the guys?
Definitely helps. And with each pick, and Sean can elaborate. We talk about where are you lining up? Are they going to start outside and be able to move the star? Are they going to get in the safety room and still be able to move down and do some nickel corner? All of those things. So versatility definitely helps.
Yeah, no question. I mean, especially it runs in alignment with our philosophy defensively where, you're asking sometimes safeties to come down and cover number 3 or number 2 away from the passing strength. And so you're exactly right, Greg. And the more ways that you can activate these players, whether they're playing on the second or the third level of the defense or they have the ability to line up at that outside number 1 position and line up over receivers or tight ends, those are all things that you like. And these guys, the game makes sense to all of these players. One of the things that I think you guys would agree that's consistent with the players we want to onboard, they love football. They're great competitors, and I think those guys that do that end up being those versatile type of playmakers. And you look at both Rush Yeast and Quentin Lake. Both their dads were they come from great football pedigrees, and we've had some success with guys like that, and they're all competitive, and they're all guys that we feel like will fit into our locker room. And some guys, to Dennis's question, will get a chance to compete sooner than later. Just because of the depth that we have. That was why you see a lot of action in that back end on the defensive side of the ball, because we've got a lot of guys that have played really high-level football for us, but we also lost some guys that played a lot of football for us. And so I'm excited to watch, Raheem and Chris Shula and Jonathan Cooley and Lance Schulters be able to put their arm around these guys and help them, and watch Jalen and some of our other leaders in that room and Jordan Fuller do the same.
I have an initial
Last two guys.
Initial follow-up, if you don't mind. We hadn't had a chance to speak with Darian yet. Obviously, you guys are super intentional about your evaluations and really getting to know these guys on a personal level. And as you were going through this process, what were some of the conversations you guys and your personnel people had with him about some of the things he went through, moving schools, and some of the things he experienced?
He's definitely a young man that we spent a lot of time with. We visited him a couple of times. And we definitely wanted to, obviously with each kid they have a case study. And a lot of times I say this, we do it obviously to see is he the type of person, football player that we want to invest in, right? How can he be useful for the Rams? But there's also a part of it too where you want Darian to get to know who's going to be in our building, so that when he does come here, there's an element of already beginning to build some trust with some of our staff members are going to be a part of helping him succeed. I know I've texted and talked to Kirby Smart probably 3 times a day, and he keeps reiterating, hey, know this, that kid loves football and he's smart. And we've always said, if you love football, that North Star, it's got a chance to help you stay on track if you're not there yet, as you get there.
You got an edge guy in the 7th round. How do you feel now about this outside linebacker on the end opposite Leonard Floyd?
I think you feel good. I think Justin Hollins has played really good football. I think when you go back and you look at what Terrell Lewis was able to do, Kevin, there was a lot of really good things that get you excited. And I know Thad is really excited about being able to work with Daniel Hardy. The thing that's appealing about him is Joe DeCamillis and Jeremy Springer, our special teams guys, really liked him as well. He's got great athleticism. He can play in space. Typically, if you're able to find a guy from that outside linebacker position that's able to contribute on special teams, that's a big double thumbs up in terms of some of the versatility that he can add if he is able to compete to make it onto the 48, where you're trying to figure out, hey, how can we maximize every single guy that we get up during game day? And so that's a thing. I'm looking forward to seeing Chris Garrett, take a step in the right direction after his rookie year. So that was a positive thing. But just like anything else, the first things first, like what they did in college, now it's a great new challenge for all these guys, and how quickly they're able to accelerate their learning process and their ability to compete at a higher level is something that we're looking forward to.
Last
Thank you.
I very much appreciate it. The
Tempers are flaring.
couple years in a row now, you guys have identified those smaller school prospects with the super high potential, high athletic trade. And I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit on what that process, how you kind of refine that process a little bit in finding guys like Jacoby and Daniel and Chris Garrett here before that.
Go ahead, Les.
It's you know what it's a neat process in the during the fall you're aware of them, but you're always you really are like, okay. We can't wait to see them maybe go to an All-Star game in Jacoby's right. In his respect, it was the East-West, and you see him then compete against some players that got drafted today that you don't get to see him play against a lot at that level. But South Carolina State, very respected program. A lot of players come out of there and make it to our league, and they do play a Power 5 school here or there. So you keep, and then again, you go to a combine or a pro day, and you check some boxes there where you go, okay, there's some horsepower in that body. There's some gears in that. They may be more of a Power 5 athlete than lesser athlete. That somewhere along the way, he didn't get a shot to get to the Power 5, but he got this. But so those boxes are really, and the more they check the boxes, then you keep going back. You keep going. Okay, we better take another look and take another look and take another look and Jacoby's a Ram.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.